This is Volusia Today, a public information radio program brought to you by the County of Volusia. Here is your host, Kevin Captain.
Good morning and welcome to Volusia Today. I'm Kevin Captain and I'm joined today with co-host Clayton Jackson. Good morning, Clayton.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you doing this fine morning?
I'm doing great. I just want to thank everyone for tuning in this morning. Volusia Today is made possible by our sponsors, Daytona Beach International Airport, the Ocean Center, Volusia Recycles, and Vote-Tran Public Transportation. So, Clayton, today's show is about the H word.
And what would that be?
It's not, our audio guys here, it's not help, it's not heck, it's hurricanes.
Ooh, say that.
So we've got guest Jim Judge. He's the director of the Department of Emergency Services, and he's also interim director of the Division of Emergency Management. Good morning, Jim.
Well, good morning, Kevin. Good morning, Clayton. It's good to see you guys here in a beautiful Volusia County day.
It certainly is. And first, we got to start off. What does the crystal ball of Jim Judge, his predicted season of the 2023 Atlantic hurricane season?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a little foggy right now, Kevin. But some of the predictions are already in. Colorado State University has come out with their forecast or predictions, which is a little bit below average. So the average season would be 14 named storms, 7 of which could be hurricanes. 3 of those could be Category 3 or greater. So Colorado State has come out with a potential for an El Nino with 13 named storms, 6 of which could be hurricanes, and 2 of those could be Category 3s or greater. So the National Hurricane Center, National Weather Service will come out later this month with their forecast.
Now, so I'm glad to hear that the National Weather Service is going to come out with one, and nothing against Colorado, but they don't have hurricanes up there.
No, they don't. But they do a heck of a job and have for many, many years looking at the potential. And there's so much science that goes into the forecasting and from the water temperatures to an El Nino versus La Nina. So there's so many things that they take into consideration. So to make it simple, when it's very cold in the Pacific, it's La Nina. When it's very warm in the Pacific, that's when we get an El Nino. And an El Nino is when the upper level winds in the Gulf, the Gulf Stream really comes down in over southeast United States, where in an La Nina, it's more up toward the northeast. So we get those upper level winds. We get what we love is wind shear. So during an El Nino year, with those upper level winds, it can really prevent the storms from forming, or if they do begin to form, they don't get as strong in many cases, or they can even keep them blowing out into the open Atlantic.
So the high wind shear, it keeps it out in the Atlantic and then kind of pushes it northward?
It does in many cases. However,
there's a however.
But Hurricane Michael was a Category 5 that affected the Panhandle during an El Nino year, and even all the way back to Hurricane Andrew, and other storms in between was during an El Nino year. So, while even last year, it was supposed to be a very above average year. It was supposed to be quite a busy season, and in all honesty, it was almost an average year. We had 14 named storms, 8 hurricanes, and 2 Category 3s. And of course, Ian was one of those Category 3s. So, as we always say, it only takes one.
It only takes one storm, but the predictions were accurate.
They were, so pretty accurate that it was basically an average season. So we just have to wait, but you just never know. So we got to do the deal. I know we're coming out of, and people are still, doing their repairs. We're still getting the beaches, the walkovers, and everything from Ian and Nicole. We've been through COVID, so who wants to hear about hurricane season? But, we have to do our job and make sure that the public is prepared. They understand it's coming, and let the public know also what we're doing to get prepared.
I was going to say, for those of you who may not know, it is actual National Hurricane Preparedness Week. So in a nutshell, I know you probably could talk for 5 hours about how people should start preparing, but real quick, tell us what our residents need to start doing now, because like I said, we are less than a month away from the official start of hurricane season.
It's the truth. In the last few years, we've actually had systems develop in the month of May. So, you never know. And oftentimes, too, with a hurricane, we get 5 to 7 days notice. They're way out in the open Atlantic, and then we begin to watch them as they move toward the coast. But that doesn't always happen. There are systems that can form literally off the coast to give us 1, maybe 2 days notice before they make landfall. So anything can happen. It's the weather.
So Mother Nature doesn't abide by the June 1st.
It doesn't. Okay. And we wish it did. But and then usually once we get into September, October, is generally September 11th is the peak of the hurricane season. So that's, something we pay close attention to. But again, things can happen all during the hurricane season. So what should the public do? Well, first of all, download the Volusia County Emergency Management app. There's a wealth of information in that app. There's checklists. And then get that checklist, take a look at it. What have you already got on hand? Is there extra food in the pantry? Have you got some extra water, flashlights, and also your battery-operated lanterns, extra batteries? And it's a good time to check because you've heard me say this before. I haven't used that flashlight in about a year. And I open it up and I get a handful of batteries and a handful of goo where the batteries, because
all the acid.
They're acid, and they're snapped in. So there's a lot of pressure on those batteries. I always recommend keep the batteries separate until you need it. Have the batteries right there with it so you can install the batteries and then you've got a good working light. And I actually had a couple lanterns that I pulled out the other day. My son borrowed one to go camping, opened it up, and it didn't work because the battery acid leached. It got onto the contacts and didn't work anymore. So, it's just a little tip. And here's something kind of funny. Many years ago, a friend of mine said, if you take your batteries and you put them in the refrigerator, they'll last longer. And I, really respected this gentleman as a longtime emergency manager. So I started doing it. And then I Googled it, and I did some research on it. And no, it doesn't work. It actually has a reverse effect.
Oh.
So...
Interesting. Well, with the advent of LED bulbs and those lithium-ion batteries, a lot of the lanterns and things you buy now are just have a USB charger, and you don't need a battery.
Exactly. So it just there's so much information in that app, and then also don't forget to to sign up for our mass notification system, what we call Alert Volusia, and you can do that by going to the website volusia.org/emergency.
That's it, Jim.
That's it.
And you can sign up for it. And I'm glad you brought that up because, there's been a lot of noise, if you will, about the notification system, the error that happened on the state. And it was human error. And it was obviously an error that is going to happen. Nobody got hurt. But the big key message there is, don't turn off your alerts just because that happened.
It's the truth. It was a mistake, and overall, the company that we use for the mass notification is excellent. So really, all 67 counties are literally asking the governor, don't cut it off, don't change. It's a great company. They do a terrific job, and the state themselves have made mistakes before. I remember after Hurricane Matthew, I was with the county manager and a lot of city officials, and everybody's phones were going crazy, and it was an alert for a boil water notice for all of Volusia County that came from the Florida Division of Emergency Management. That was a mistake. So we were quickly able to get the messaging out. So, was it inconvenient at 4:45 in the morning? I mean, we all got up.
It was.
But at the same time, I was so happy that so many people, actually had the alerts on their phones.
And that's the silver lining, right?
Yes.
I mean, and that's the good part where it did work. Obviously, it worked on a mass scale, but I think the message there is don't turn off your alerts.
That's absolutely correct,
because
Kevin.
you could really miss out on a very important notification.
Well, you could, and oftentimes tornado warnings. We get those warnings sometimes come in the middle of the night, and historically, tornadoes generally happen from around 11 at night till about 6 in the morning is the preponderance of tornadoes. So if you're sleeping and you don't know that something like that is coming, that alert may save your life.
And I'm going to throw another checklist item out there for everybody. What about tarps? And I'm not referring about tarps that go on the roof. So, Jim, explain this real quick why somebody should go ahead and start buying tarps right now.
Well, Clayton, as you know, we worked very hard on a video that is out there right now. And you can go to our Facebook page, and it's basically about how to properly use sandbags, but then also how to use some type of a barrier between the sandbags and your door, your garage door, a barrier. It could be a plastic sheeting, it could be a tarp, and we've had some really good feedback from that video. And then also there's a video we also did, which has also received about 14,000 hits just in a matter of days, is about flood insurance. So many times I'm not in a flood zone, I don't need it. My mortgage company doesn't require it, but look what happened with Ian, and a lot of homes flooded in Volusia County, thousands of homes flooded, businesses. So, And the nice thing about it is that Volusia County is a class 4 class 5 rather, with the community rating system. Many cities are a class 5, which means we get a 25% discount on flood insurance. So, take a look at it, see if it's affordable, but, and because your homeowner's insurance isn't going to cover it.
Exactly. And also, a word of caution, go ahead and start looking into flood insurance now, because most flood insurance policies take about a month, around 30 days for them to actually become effective.
You sign up today, it won't go into effect for 30 days.
Exactly. So don't wait until you get a notification that here comes a storm and you call your insurance agent, because they're going to say, hey, I probably can get you coverage, but it's not going to be in time for this storm when it arrives.
Exactly. And that was, when we had Ian and we saw so many people using sandbags, and I think we gave out, in the county alone, gave out over 25,000. And I saw so many, people that were using them and using them incorrectly. So that's where we said, we got to fix this. So, Kevin, Clayton, we worked together to put that together. Real proud of that video.
Is starring Jim Judge.
Tom Cruise was unavailable. The Rock, we called The Rock, but he was filming.
But Jim was around.
But, so I drew the short straw. But real proud of it. I think it really is informational on how to properly use the sandbags, how to use that barrier in between the sandbags and your door, your garage, whatever entrance it is you're trying to protect.
Absolutely. And before we take a quick break, I do remember, just back on the flood insurance portion, when we were talking about people who think, I don't need a coverage because I don't live in a flood zone. But then your response to that, Jim, is you live in Florida, right? If you live in Florida, you need flood insurance.
Just because it hasn't flooded doesn't mean it won't flood. And, when we get an event like Ian, and then also look out at Hurricane Harvey in Texas, tremendous flooding there as well. Look at Broward County, what just happened. It wasn't a hurricane, it wasn't a tropical storm, it was a weather event. Tremendous flooding down there. And so even the state was going to come to Volusia to do a continuity of operations planning that they would relocate to our EOC. They actually deployed a lot of resources down to Broward to help with the recovery efforts down there. So it doesn't have to be a hurricane or a tropical storm. It was a heck of a weather event, dumped an awful lot of water in a very short amount of time.
And even though FEMA was here to help, and they're a tremendous agency to help, they don't make you whole if you don't have coverage.
They don't. You might get a fraction of what the costs truly are. And, and then, of course, you've got to look at your insurance coverage. What is your out-of-pocket costs? So that deductible's wonderful when you've got a very high deductible. But when you get hit, have you got the money in the bank to cover that deductible to be able to get the rest of the insurance to, help you out?
We're talking with Jim Judge. He's the Director of Emergency Services for the county. We'll take a quick break and come back and continue to talk about the Atlantic hurricane season for 2023. Stay with us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jim Judge. I'm the Emergency Services Director for Volusia County. Coming out of Hurricane Ian and so much flooding, we just wanted to make sure that everyone understands how to properly use sandbags, and then also how to properly use a barrier between the sandbags and the doors or any other access point that you're trying to block up. A barrier in between the sandbags and the doors just helps keep the water out. Whether it's your home, your business, your garage, you can use a tarp, sheet plastic. You can even use garbage bags, the heavy-duty garbage bags. You can cut these up. It's so important to have that barrier in between the sandbags and the door. Now, your sandbags should only be filled 2/3 full. You don't want to fill them all the way up. And you want to fold the top of the sandbag underneath the sandbag. You want to go on the other side of the door to start stacking the sandbags. So you want to use kind of brick style, keeping them good and tight. When they're only 3/4 full, you can actually spread the sand out to be able to give you as much coverage as you can. Now, depending on how high the water may come, you can actually keep the tarp higher. You can put another layer or 2 more layers of sandbags on top, and then you can even come along with a second row of sandbags in front of the first row. When you come to the county or you go to one of the municipalities for sandbags, make sure you bring your ID, because some of the cities require a form of ID to be able to get the sandbags. Bring some help, and oftentimes when you get to the locations, people are helping people, or you may fill the sandbags yourself. You can even buy sand from your big box stores, have those white sand that you can use to place. There's even something you can Google called sandless sandbags. 2023 hurricane season is just around the corner. And of course, now's the time to look at our preparedness list. You know, having some extra food in the pantry, extra water, and all the provisions that you may need to help you weather a storm. Once the storm is over, take the sand, take the dirt, dump it out of the sandbags, put it in your garden, and hang on to those bags. Because if we have another event through the 2023 hurricane season, then you have the bags, extra bags, to be able to help you to get through the event. If you need more information, of course, you can always call the Volusia County Emergency Management Office at 386-254-1500. Always someone there, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, to answer the phones and provide additional information.
We're back. I'm Clayton Jackson along with Kevin Kaplan, and you're listening to Volusia Today, a public information program brought to you by the County of Volusia. And on today's show, we have the County of Volusia Emergency Services Director Jim Judge talking a little bit about the upcoming hurricane season. So, Jim, in the event conditions really start to worsen during a storm and an evacuation order has been issued, why should people heed this warning?
Well, because we don't want them to be in danger. We want them to get out of harm's way. So, you know, when we make the decision for evacuations, and of course that's with our county manager, George Rechtenwald. George is absolutely a wonderful manager, and we've been through all these storms together. So, you know, a lot of thought goes into it. We have our senior leadership, which we call our Managers Advisory Group, which is a sheriff, property appraiser, tax collector, superintendent of schools. Everybody comes together. And then, of course, we are on the phone with the National Weather Service, getting the conditions directly for Volusia County, what we can anticipate. And then we take make the decisions on the protective actions. You know, school closures. Are we going to order evacuation orders? Are they going to be voluntary or are they going to be mandatory? So we look at the threat. And we always want to get people out of harm's way. So if we see conditions are going to be dangerous, then we're going to issue those evacuation orders. And, you know, and it could be for different parts of the county. Primarily, if we've got something coming in off the Atlantic or just going right by, you know, with like a Matthew that was with a strong Category 1. And even with Ian was evacuation orders, and then also with Nicole was mandatory. But we could see that mandatory for Nicole was going to be primarily an eastern side of the county. So we issued, you know, for the evacuation orders for, you know, along the intercoastal waterway, the Barrier Island, but then also RV parks, low-lying areas, mobile home parks, and so forth. You know, and again, you know, when you do make your decisions now on whether you're going to stay based on your experiences from Ian or Nicole, where are you going to go? You know, our school district, our school superintendent, wonderful. You know, right this week we are already working on meeting to talk about sheltering, to talk about the shelters we'll use, and again, we always have those schools available. We have the fairgrounds as well for pet friendly. Multiple general population shelters are pet friendly, but then all of our special needs shelters are pet friendly as well. The health department manages the special needs, and so there's a whole lot that goes into, you know, getting ready for the hurricane season, but sheltering is a big part of it. So, you know, for me, you know, I remember back in the 04 storms when I was over running Lake and Sumter counties, and I stood up on the overpass of I-75, and as I looked north and south, it was a parking lot. So where are you going to go? You know, and here's the thing too, is that I remember with Hurricane, it was Irma. Irma was going to come into the Broward County area. Then it was going to come into the bottom of the state. And so many people evacuated to the Tampa area. Right. Well, guess what?
I remember that.
Yeah. I mean, there were thousands of people that went over to Tampa, which really inundated their shelters. And then, of course, it went over Cujo Key, up over Marco Island. And really, so people that evacuated actually put themselves in harm's way. So, you know, you've got to be careful what you're doing, where you're going to go, and make your plans, because where you're going to stay, where you're going to get fuel. If you're stuck, you know, make sure that you've got items in your vehicle so that, you know, hey, a roll of toilet paper, you know, some water, some provisions, because you could get stuck.
Sure.
And that's the worst case scenario. I remember when Opal went up into Escambia County, they were a little late to pull, and this is years ago, a little late to pull the trigger on, and they did on the evacuation orders. You know, the roads were inundated. I-10 was jammed. They literally were taking people with vehicles and pulling them out of their cars and taking them to the closest shelters to get them out of those vehicles as the storm was approaching. So, you know, make your evacuation plans now, and, you know, go inland. You don't have to go 100 miles away. You don't have to leave the state. Just get away from the coast. You know, we always say you want to run from the water, and hide from the wind. So for me, I board up my house because I'm in a good, safe location, got a good, strong house, and I use plywood. A lot of folks will get the custom made type of corrugated aluminum or those types of products or the polymer to be able to protect their homes. So, just give a lot of thought to that. And here's a study that was done once. There was a university that went to some of the rest areas, and they were interviewing people who had evacuated. And 99% of those people didn't know where they were going to go, didn't know where they were going to stay, and were very concerned about getting fuel. So to me, that's a heck of a lot of anxiety. That for me too, it's like 2 days before a storm makes landfall, and the big box stores have lines a mile long. Today, you can go to those stores, you can buy wood, you can have a custom cut for you, you can get batteries, you can get your supplies in a non-stressful event. I don't like stress.
Now's the time to do it. I mean, and this is why
another checklist item to mark off.
So, if you do your planning and you do it well, then, you still have to deal with the storm, but you don't have to go through the stress of, trying to worry about fuel and where to stay and all that. But again, move inland, stay with family and friends, get a hotel room. Or, if you need to, take us up on one of our evacuation shelters.
Right. The other thing, Jim, in making a plan and going to get the supplies now while the shelves are stocked, I like how you always emphasize the importance of helping your neighbors, making sure that they're safe, and if they need a helping hand. And I love the story you always say about Gert, your neighbor, she's in her 90s probably.
91, Gertrude
and you're always out there helping her, and that makes a difference.
It really does. I think today my wife's taking her to Publix, so,
Beautiful.
You meet friends and you meet individuals in your neighborhood, and I'm very fortunate where I live. We know a lot of the neighbors. We have a little homeowners association that really just keeps up the aerators in the ponds and the lights on the entrance. But, so we get to know a lot of our neighbors and also what their needs might be. And here's the thing, too, is that I remember when I was growing up in South Florida, Pompano Beach, there was always that one neighbor that had been around for a long time. So when that individual started to board up their home, then that was a sign everybody better board up. No. And so I remember when Matthew was coming and, having to get home and then get back to work. So I boarded up early. So I looked down the street and all the neighbors were out in the driveways watching me. So as soon as I started boarding up, boy, they thought, if that guy's doing it, I better jump on it as well. So, just take those protective actions, whether you're boarding up your home, getting the sandbags, properly utilizing those things and have the extra items. And then again, like, you might make family out of your neighbors, that like we have.
Oh, absolutely. And it ends up being a two-way street. You help them out, and someday you're going to be in need, and they're going to be there to help you.
It's the truth, and you just check on them, and make sure their needs are met and help, help put up shutters or whatever it takes, just do the right thing.
Yep. And just let our listeners out there know that Jim was very kind to actually do a virtual tour of the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center. And we're actually going to be pushing that video out here very soon. So he gave us in that video, you're going to give our viewers, our followers, a very good insight of what goes down at the Emergency Operations Center when disaster is on its way, during, and even after. So what happens at the EOC like right now when there's not an emergency or a hurricane barreling our way?
That Emergency Operations Center, and especially the operations room, it's in use all year long. We do a tremendous amount of training. I would say probably 3 to 4 weeks out of the month, we've got some type of a class going on. We bring in the Florida Division of Emergency Management. We have a lot of instructors here in the county as well. And then we bring in instructors on a variety of subjects. So every year we have we put out over 500 different training programs, and then we put it out to the fire chiefs, law enforcement, to the entire community and say, tell us what you feel we need to train on. And then we go after the training. And also, it could be that just this week we had some training that we had multiple emergency management directors from around the state, because we were able to get some classes that aren't taught that often. we open it up because we go to Seminole County, we go to Brevard County, we'll go up to Flagler County for training, as well as the training we provide here. And so then we open it up and let other individuals. And it's just a way, emergency management's a small family in the state, and it's just a way to stay connected and keep those friendships and in those contacts and, going. But constantly we're training. Planning, training, and exercising is constant in the Emergency Operations Center. Of course, this time of year, we're getting ready to do our Citizen Information Center training with all the county employees that will operating out of that. We're doing an EOC orientation for anybody that is new to the county and needs that orientation. And then also a refresher on EOC operations. So, there's a lot going on this time of year as we get ready for hurricane season. But I would tell you that facility is used all year long, and it's wonderful because it truly is. It's been, recognized as probably one of the finest emergency operations centers in the country. We're proud of it. And of course, we share that facility with the Sheriff's Office Consolidated Dispatch Center. And so we're all in there together, and it's beautiful. So that video is going to come out later today. Take a look at it because you all did such a wonderful job, not just showing you, but then also going back to look at the pictures and, when it was activated.
Well, we had a wonderful host, I can say that.
All right. Well, Jim, I mean, especially when you're talking about relationships and helping your neighbor, I love the relationships that you have with all the other counties and all the cooperation that occurs with the EOC. I mean, that is just absolutely tremendous.
Emergency management's all about relationships, being able to pick up the phone, ask questions, and that's all the way from the governor's office to our state and federal legislators, and even to my good friend Kevin Guthrie, the director for the Florida Division of Emergency Management.
He's a great guy. We'll take our last break with Volusia Today and come back and wrap up the show with Jim Judge. Stay with us.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jim Judge, and I'm the Director for the Department of Emergency Services. We're going to take you on a virtual tour of the Emergency Operations Center, a facility that's now over 10 years old. It opened in April of 2013. We're extremely proud of this facility. It has been called one of the finest emergency operations centers in the country, both from the FEMA leadership and the state of Florida leadership. Let's take a look at this outstanding facility. Our first stop along the tour is our Citizen Information Center. This is a vital component of our Emergency Operations Center, both prior to, during, and certainly post-hurricane, tornado, tropical storm, staffed by county employees that come in here, operate on a small scale as the system is approaching, and we're putting out information on sandbags or power outages or shelter locations. And then as the system moves closer to us, then this room could have 25 individuals operating out of it. Again, providing that critical information directly to the public, answering your questions on anything that may be going on in Volusia County. This is our Office of Community Information, a wonderful division that provides information to the public, both prior to, during, and after a storm, press releases, power outages, where they can get sandbags. The information is put out there in a variety of sources to keep the public informed. An important part of the Operations Center is keeping everyone fed. As you can imagine, we can have anywhere from 250 to 275 individuals within the building, and that includes our Consolidated Communications Center. So all the food is provided by our Corrections Division, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and even a midnight snack for those that are working overnight. And our kitchen here is just outstanding to be able to feed that many people for multiple days, again on a 24-hour basis. This is our media room. This is where we conduct press conferences, both prior to, during, and even post-storm, and obviously providing critical information out to the public. Our County Council Chair, Sheriff Chitwood, our Superintendent of Schools, and many VIPs providing information to the public. And some of that information may be curfews, school closures, any other protective actions that we've taken, what's the status of our bridges, and having those press conferences a way for us to work with our media outlets to provide that critical information to the public. This is the Manager's Advisory Group room. This is a very important room where very important critical decisions are made on behalf of Volusia County. County Manager George Rechtenwald chairs the committee that's made up of all leadership. This is where we're going to decide, are we going to go under a local state of emergency? Are we going to close government buildings? Are we going to announce evacuations? There's so many important decisions that get made in this room, and then that information gets communicated up to our county council, to our city officials, and then through press conferences. Lots of things take place in this room. We monitor the weather from this room. We conduct conference calls from this room. The most important is when we convene the Manager's Advisory Group. Welcome to the Operations Room. This is the hub of the Emergency Operations Center. Many activities take place out of this room. Besides our 21 emergency support functions, our universities, our airport, FEMA, DOT, anybody and everybody that supports our response and recovery is going to be in this room to handle problems, answer questions, and provide information out to the public. I want to thank everyone for joining me on the tour today for Volusia County Emergency Management. Don't forget, hurricane season's less than a month away, and also don't forget to download the Emergency Management app, a wealth of information to help you get better prepared for the upcoming hurricane season. And we're only a phone call away for hurricane presentations, tours, or anything we can do to be of assistance.
We're back. We're talking with Jim Judge with the Department of Emergency Services. So we've got a little bit less than 2 minutes, and I guess just publicly I'll mention that I'm leaving community information and I'm going over to the Department of Emergency Services. And Jim, you are my new boss.
Well, boy, I'll tell you what, Kevin. Remember now, you're on probation.
We're always on probation. You know, it's bittersweet for me to leave community information because it's a wonderful team and really some exemplary professionals. But Jim, you casted a hook out there, and I guess I took the bait.
Well, and I had to use about a 100-pound test to get you. But
100 pound. That's good. Hey, that's great. You got me on 100 pounds. Should have been 300-pound test line.
Kevin is going to be the new director for the Division of Emergency Medical Services. So I can't tell you how excited we are, Kevin, to see you take that role. The right person at the right time, on the right seat on the bus. And, you know, we've been through several directors in EMS, but now we're going to have an individual over there for the long haul. And it's a lot going on, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, Kevin. So I'm going to be right there to support you every step of the way. We got a good team at EMS, and so excited to see you take that on. I'm
so appreciative, Jim. I'm looking forward to it. You know, that's important work that we do for Volusia County residents and visitors. You know, our events and everything that we have. So EMS is certainly going to be a great endeavor, and I'm looking forward to working with you in the future.
And here's the thing too, Kevin. I know we talked about things that you can do to come back to talk about the public and how they can prepare to receive an ambulance.
I'll be back on the show for sure. With that, we're going to wrap up Volusia Today. Thanks for listening. Take care, stay safe, and help your neighbors.
If you have a comment about Volusia Today, or if there is a topic you would like to hear featured, please contact Volusia County Community Information at 1-866-345-0345.